Alrighty, welcome all you wonderful weebs. It is Monday afternoon. I have not gotten started effectively this morning, and that's because my schedule's all fucked up. And that's all my doing, and we'll talk about it at the end. But first, I want to make the most important part of this video at the very start of this video. And the most important part of this video is an announcement. Yesterday, for 2.5, almost 3 hours, Ed from Psychulturists, another reaction channel that's doing some interesting things in the Twitch live streaming space, and I sat down and had a face-to-face via the internet discussion about reaction videos and ourselves and anime and the world and all sorts of interesting things, and we came to some pretty interesting conclusions and more importantly had some interesting back and forth discussions, and I think you should watch it. I think it's really cool, and it's going up on my new channel. And I want to be clear that this does not mean in any way the end of Teeaboo. This discussion that I had with him is the first of a podcast discussion sequence series that I want to do under the moniker Tea or Tea Talks Too Much, as something broader for me to explore about myself. I'm never going to give up on anime. Teeaboo is always going to be a big chunk of who I am, and we're not going to be slowing down in terms of the reactions. But I am also overloading myself, and that's what I meant when I said that I was heading towards some weird stuff and some burnout and fucked up my scheduling. So I need to take a step back and evaluate. So what I'm doing today is I'm not going to record a new video of most big kinds. I'm just editing and rendering the big, giant discussion podcast. It's the first time I've ever done anything like it. And I'm going to put that up, and we're going to see how it goes. And then beyond that, I'm going to make this little daily brew video and try to figure out how to evaluate my current schedule and what I can move where and how I can shift things around to hopefully maintain all the content that I want to create while not dying on the inside. Because if I start doing too much, it's all going to fall apart, and I want to be able to keep stumbling forward at least. And we'll get into some of that stuff if you go and watch the Tea and Psychulturists video. I guess maybe I'll put a little thing here that maybe is like a teaser from that episode and from what it is to get you to hook you and get you to go and watch it. Ta-da!
And it's like there's a lot of things that are like missing in terms of psychology, like today, like modern psychology, and sort of how it can actually impact the space going further. So
When
it was
when
one
you
of those.
say the space, what do you mean? You mean YouTube? You mean the internet? You mean the world? What's the space?
So the space that I mean is quite literally like social media in general.
Yeah.
And the space is also in psychology in of itself. And I love to throw it out this way because we have a lot of good foundations. For example, we have Young, right?
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal. His archetypes, absolutely great reads, Bulby, attachment, all of that. But then
Cool.
after a certain while, it's like we stopped sort of progressing into trying to go ahead and get more thoughts into like modernity, what's happening in the
Mm.
here and now.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a lot of it has only been like, oh yeah, we're gonna go ahead and talk about theoretical knowledge rather than applied knowledge and try and see how we can relate to like this new generation that's coming up, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I do see that. I see in a lot of different fields a lot of verging toward theory instead of application, and
Right.
this sort of a feeling of armchairiness, which is funny because both of us are sitting here in essentially armchairs talking about stuff, right? This is what we do, is we
Right.
theorize about things, but that's really interesting, that sort of lack of application, and so that somehow led you into the process of doing instead of thinking, and the process that you came to in doing was to stream on Twitch.
Well, yeah, it started off on YouTube,
Right,
right?
right. Because I watched your first video. Oh, that's somewhere that I should start as well. Is that
Sure.
I watched your first video, and early on in it, that you mentioned that you had a tendency to have nosebleeds when you connect a bunch of ideas together, and that was such a really interesting thing to hear you say, because I had been thinking about that process of eureka moments, or like revelations, or moments where a bunch of puzzle pieces sort of come together and click, because I've experienced a number of them in the last few months, weeks, and I've watched a couple of my friends experience a number of them, and it's just awesome to experience. So you talking about that as a specific event kind of clarified some ideas for me, so that's really cool.
Oh, well, I first off, I'm glad that it helped out a little bit in connecting a lot of those events. But yeah, like it's sort of a meme, like in chat in general, I guess. A lot,
Mm.
a lot of times it's like, oh, he's gonna connect. He's about to have a nosebleed. Get your paper.
that's
And I'm
that's
like,
awesome.
it's such an amazing feeling, like both seeing, for example, anime, video games, anything, and connecting the dots. And then
Hmm.
like as a therapist as well, when you're helping out people and they're able to go ahead and like put a lot of their own little pieces together and be like, wait a minute, I think I'm starting to understand where everything's connecting. And you see that aha moment, you're like, yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
There we go. That's some good work.
Yeah, that tracks. It makes me really enthusiastic and interested in therapy as a process. I will say, I'll just say it straight out. I have never gone to specifically psychotherapy, which is interesting that I've never gone, because I have an immense amount of respect for the process and the understanding and the learning and all of that. But I suppose that's on my list of dragons that I have to go out and fight. So just this past week, I went to the doctors for the first time in 6 years or something, and I had built up this set of fears around going there, and like, oh gosh, the system doesn't work, and oh gosh, it's never going to be anything for it. I'm going to find out that I have a terminal disease, and the dragon's going to eat me, and it's going to be bad. So I went and I made the appointment, and I went to the damn doctor's office, and I killed the dragon, and there wasn't really a dragon there, and it was fine, and the doctor was nice, and I'm pretty healthy, I think, and done, right? So therapy's the next thing on that list, probably.
Well, first off, hey, good job on getting checked up. And I recommend that to everyone. Like, if go get your
Totally.
yearly checkups, do what
Totally.
needs to be done, because it's scary. I'm not gonna lie. Even as a therapist, hey, I'm scared of going to go to the doctor for any checkups, or even like when I
Oh
go see
yeah,
my like a psychologist, my psychologist or whatever. I'm also like, ooh, how much am I intellectualizing and like over fearing because of like my knowledge and stuff, rather than like
totally.
going in there and actually like hearing what they have to say.
Totally. And I think it's a danger probably to go around walking around going like, well, I understand people pretty well, so I understand myself pretty well. And if you don't have
Right.
enough mirrors around you to reflect back to you whether that's true or not, you can go down some weird rabbit holes and really sort of spiral out of control. And so we sort of spiral through our discussion toward the purpose, I think, of to some extent what we're doing. And the reason that I threw down this gauntlet in the first place was so that we could talk about this and talk about the
Sure.
question of like, what are we doing and why is it interesting? Because I started this out and I didn't know the answer to that question at all, but I've come closer to understanding it just by following the things that I find compelling. And one of those things is just talking about the stuff that I find interesting. So
Right.
that's the big question in the space, and it's the question that I sort of inherently asked by saying I want to be the best at this, because when you say that, you immediately have to ask the second question, which is the best at what, and what does the best mean? And
Right.
so what are we doing and why are we doing it and how do we get better at it and what's the goal state? Because it's not just watch the funny thing and go hee hee ha ha, except that it is just that sometimes too, and that's something great that you pointed out as well. So we're
Yeah.
doing this thing that's complicated and multi-layered, and nobody's really articulating what it is that we're doing, but thousands and thousands of people are in a reactor space and constantly seeking out information from people that they've come to trust or have some kind of parasocial relationship with. And I think there's power. I think there's something interesting in it.
Oh, I was about to say you're hitting on so many questions and so much, information that I as well have pondered live on stream. You walked in on some of those times where I'm like, wait a minute, what are we doing? Like,
Mm-hmm. And that's part of why I wanted to talk to you, is because like you're gonna figure out things that I haven't figured out, and I've already
right.
figured out things that you're not going to figure out unless you do like a year's more's worth of stuff. And so if we can figure that stuff out and share it with each other, we can save each other time and get better together, and that's really rad.
And honestly, yeah, that's what it's about. It's about, because a lot of people, honestly, and I want to go ahead and throw this out there. A lot of people, for some reason, have this weird competition mentality,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah,
Where they're
totally.
trying to compete with like other people, and other people in this space all have different missions, which I'm sure is
Mm-hmm.
what we're going to go into. We all have
Mm-hmm.
different goals, different ideologies, and everything. And the biggest person that you can compete with naturally is yourself.
Oh,
If we're
every
going to be
time.
realistic, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what's going to lead into this question before we go into the overarching theme. It's,
Cool.
for you, especially since you're, I see that you're really creative. You're really like you're on it when it comes to a lot of your discussions. I've been there and I'm like, oh, I didn't see that, especially when it comes to a lot of your Mushoku Tensei reactions.
Yeah,
I've been
those have
there
been
because
great. Those have been. I mean, I'm not saying like necessarily. I think my reactions have been really good. I'm proud of them, frankly.
right.
I think they've been great. And Mushoku is really cool and has a lot of layers to it. So,
And
it's been
I have a
fun to
lot of
let
people.
loose.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. I have a lot of people in my community that have been like, "Yo, you have to check him out." Like, this was before we even connected. And I was like, "All right, cool." So I started checking out your Mushoku Tensei videos and your discussion pieces. I'm like, "Wow, I did not think about it through this particular," because you were looking at it through a film perspective, I believe.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and And I was like, putting that together, that helps out so much more in my understanding of the series going forward as well, rather than just using one frame. So for you, my question is, seeing as though you have a lot going on in your life and whatnot, how do you balance out, say, like the perfection nature of trying to go ahead and like keep everything edited, versus
Mhm.
sometimes the chaotic nature of like it can't all be perfect, right?
The answer is as well as I can, which is poorly, and I stumble forward continuously. Uh, uh, as a balancing act, I feel like it's the nature of doing. I recently read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, and
That's
it has been extraordinary and eye opening for me. But the one that keeps popping back up into my head is the photography class example, where they divided a photography class into two groups, and the one group was the quality group, and the one group was the quantity group. And they said, for the quality group, all you have to do, you'll be graded at the end of the semester on one photograph, but it better be perfect, right? And on the quantity group, they said, it doesn't matter how good your photographs are, you're only going to be graded on the number of photographs. And in every case, the quantity group individuals took way better photographs than any of the quality group, because as we were talking about at the very beginning, a lot of armchair thinking is very fun and very interesting and can get you somewhere, but actually taking a couple hundred photographs is going to teach you so much more. And so my answer to the balance question is, I worry about it as little as I can, and I try to do as much as I can when I can, if I can, I guess.
See, I feel like for some reason you just hit something like a pin that I've been going on for a good little bit as well. Because I've been bringing up Atomic Habits for the past couple of weeks and months
Nice.
as well. Because it's a great book, honestly.
Yeah.
Like I highly recommend it for people to go ahead and like start switching over into new habits.
Okay, hopefully there was a cool thing there, and maybe that'll convince you to go and watch that video. I hope it does. I'm not going to do another daily brew today, because this is kind of my daily brew. I am going to have some tea immediately, though. Burnout is a bitch. And it's one of the first obstacles when you start trying to make positive change for yourself, because you're trying to do more than you were before. I think almost all positive change that you can make for yourself is trying to grab more responsibility and to do more. I think it works. I think it helps you. I think it helps most of us, at least. It seems to help a lot of people. Certainly helps me. But you do more than you were used to, and you hit a wall, and that wall is yourself, and it's your own capacity. And it's like, well, some parts of it you can expand, and some parts of it you can't. And what I noticed this morning, as I got up, and I got a message from somebody going, hey, do you think we're going to watch the next movie of the Movie Monday series this week? And I went, oh my God, I haven't even recorded Cyberpunk Edgerunners from last Friday. I'm a week behind on one of the core shows, and I haven't even, oh no. I was ideating maybe getting to around to that at some point today, but I didn't lock it in. And immediately the thought that I had was, well, I guess maybe I could just skip the gym, and maybe I could stay up later and to get less sleep. And it's like, oh, okay. So now I'm starting to try to sacrifice the things that are the fundamentals of my Maslow's hierarchy, that are the baseline that I need to accomplish in order to have a creative mindset. I have to have those things in order. And it's like, wow, I'm starting to sacrifice those in order to get the things at the top of the pyramid. That ain't it. That's definitely not going to be it. And so I'm going to take today and I'm going to step back. So here's my plan for today. I'm going to upload this video teasing about the other video, and hopefully directing people toward the new channel, because getting people to click on one of these videos and find out that exists is a hard thing. Now, we did go from 0 to like 250 subscribers in 2 days, so that's nice. It's kind of the magic that you get when you already have an established fan base, is that some of it will filter out and just be curious about what you're doing, regardless of the quality of the content. But that, of course, indicates to you in an untrue way that your content is like, wow, it's booming, it's like so good, and it's not quite that good, maybe. But I want to get the word out because I'm doing something and I think it's interesting, and I think many of you might be interested in it. And I think Psychulturists Ed is doing some interesting things too, and I think it would behoove many of you to go and follow him as well. So get a peek at what he looks like and what he's doing and how he's doing and how he's approaching this media. And maybe you'll find something that you were looking for that you weren't getting from me and that you might get from him, and that could be really cool, because Ed is a very cool, very intelligent guy, but he comes at these things things from honestly a more fun mindset than I do in a lot of ways. He's a little bit less serious than I am in some senses, and that's a beautiful, magical thing that he's capable of doing. And I'm inspired to be more fun because of it and because of talking to him. So that's been really good, and it's just the start, because we're gonna do, I don't know whether it's gonna be weekly or monthly or what. I'm gonna do conversations with people that I find interesting. And that's going to be hard, because I'm going to have to go out into the space, and I'm going to have to approach people that I find interesting and ask them if they'd be willing to do a show with me, and to talk some things through, and to put up a video that we figure out the rights for, and figure out how we're gonna split our content and all that jazz. But I'd love to step into that space. As I started doing the daily brews, immediately a couple of people were like, man, this feels like a podcast. This feels like you should solidify something here. There's already a space that you can just step into. And I looked at it and was like, yeah, there's something that I find really compelling about certain types of podcasters. And while I don't, I admire some of them, and I think that maybe I admire them in a way that's like, that's something beyond me, but that I could aspire to, that I could do. And so I'm going to try. And it's going to be fucking weird, and we're going to see how it goes. And it's going to be a process of change and dying a little bit and sacrificing. And I don't know how it's going to go, and I don't know whether it will be worth it. And it might be a grand experiment that fails, and we come back and we just say, you know what? That wasn't worth it. Teeaboo was the way all along. But it seems correct, and it seems like the right direction, and so I at least have to try. I have to. It's like if I had stayed a computer programmer and never tried to dip my foot into this reaction space, this whole channel would never exist. And for those of you who've been here for a little while, all of the time that you and I have spent together in a weird parasocial way, but we've spent it together on some of the greatest works of art that I think are produced in the modern era. And that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't had the guts to step outside of myself and change a little bit and sacrifice a little bit of what I was before. And this seems like another step in that same direction, from taking me as this isolated thing that is Teeaboo that I've gotten better and better and better at. I need to step outside of that system and use what I've learned inside of it to optimize all of my other systems that I'm capable of, because people have been right and correct in that the political philosophy stuff, except in regards to how it directly relates to the anime, shouldn't be on the anime channel. And some of the theory and biology and genetic stuff that I'm actually well versed in and really interested in and really want to explore more in depth maybe doesn't have that much to do with some of the shows that I'm watching most of the time. And so figuring out a way to say this stuff goes here and this stuff goes here, and to organize myself as a highly and admittedly disorganized person seems like exactly the path that I need to walk down. And it's exactly the path that I'm going to walk down. So I'm going to try to compartmentalize and move things around, and we'll see. And the other thing that might have to happen is I might have to sacrifice something that I've been doing for a really long time that I really care about, which is that I am the only one who produces any of the things on this channel. Not one element of it, except the content that I watch, that I react to, and all credit to the incredible artists and masterpiece makers who produce it. But not one element of my videos is produced by another human being or by an AI. It's produced by this brain right here and these hands right here. And that's it. That's it. And so it's off the sweat of my brow and the blood of my body and the strength of my back that this thing exists. And I really like that. And I am loath to give it up in order to get editors or moderators or other people working on this project. But there must be a way to step forward into a space of more capacity and to figure out people who would be willing to help and to delegate to them. I just don't know how to do it. And maybe I'm not capable of trusting enough yet. And maybe that's something that I need to figure out. But I'm open to suggestions, as I've always been. And I'm open to criticisms, as I've always been. I've made some criticisms of myself today. Those criticisms are in the easy way of like, well, I'm making an experiment and I know that it might fail. And I know that part of the experiment was doing more stuff. And it's clear to me at this point on today that I'm trying to do too much a little bit. And so I gotta work that out, and I gotta work through that. So I'm opening myself up to criticism and happy to take it. But I'm also I'm overwhelmed by the truly deep feeling that I'm headed somewhere within a few degrees, which is a huge difference, somewhere within a few degrees of the right direction. And I might not have been before. And I was in a broader thing, and I've narrowed the field down, and I'm getting closer to hitting the mark of what I'm here on this dang planet to do. And I don't mean in some sort of fate or destiny way. I mean the thing that I am as well built to do as possible. Find the thing that I'm best at and try to be the best at it. Something like that. And I'm getting closer. And I'm going to continue getting closer. And I hope that you'll come with me. And we can all get better together, because all I want to do is share and show that if you act toward the world as if being is good, it will reflect that reality back to you. And the same is true of the opposite. If you act as though being is bad, being is going to be really bad. So I want to convince you, because I can change your entire experience of being, or really you can change it, because I can't help you. I can't save you. Not one of you. People can't save other people. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. I can't save you. And it's arrogant to try, and it would be stupid to do so. But I can show you where I've found the best berries and where I've found the best water. And I can hope that you will eat and drink your fill and become strong. Because if more of us are strong, then less of us will be hurting. And maybe we can make it through whatever comes our way. Because maybe we're really resilient, and maybe we're really interesting, and maybe humans are really, really, really valuable and cool. And maybe there's something transcendently powerful about that idea. We certainly act as though the individuals that we meet have some inherent worth to them. We treat each other as though that's true, and we hate when we are treated as though it's not true. So maybe let's take it as a presupposition that it's true, that all humans, all conscious entities even, are worth something, like a lot. And that maybe for all of them, if their being was a little bit more good, that would be capital G good for everybody. And I don't know what good means. It's complicated, but it's still an ideal that I'm willing to turn toward and try to muddle toward aiming for and figuring out. So, being is good. Be good in your being as best you can, whatever it means to you. And love each other. And Ed would say practice some self-care, whatever that means for you. And I would say peace. And I mean it.